All right, everyone. Welcome to the real estate numbers. What happened in real estate here in the Denver metro area for July 2020. Joined as always with the Brenna Harper with Land Title.
Hello.
So before we dive into the numbers, what's happening? Share something good that's happening, and I'm just going to put you on the spot because we didn't talk about this beforehand.
Yeah, good. I can't remember where we were the last time that we talked, but we put our son in swim lessons and he loved it. I mean, he's only one, so he's no Michael Phelps yet, but it was pretty fun to see him do that. And he learned a new word. He can say elbow. So we're pretty proud parents over here.
Yeah, super cool to watch that just click as the instructor was teaching him how to get out of the water, and she said, elbow, elbow, belly, knee, knee, and he just started saying elbow.
Yep.
That was a pretty cool moment as new parents to watch.
Yeah, pretty much everything he does we think is like the coolest thing ever. So,
Yep. We're those parents, including the cool new shoes that he's getting. He's getting some pretty cool new shoes.
Yes.
So as we jump through here, the numbers, the folks that are watching, this is meant to be a little interactive. So if you see something, you're curious, you want us to go a little bit in deeper, type it into the chat box. Let us know what your thoughts are. At least drop a line so that we know that you're watching. So anyhow, B, I'm going to jump into sharing the screen and getting ready here for what the numbers look like, because it's pretty impressive what's happened.
Yeah.
So here we go. Much better. So what, as we look at the snapshot, the overview of what happened last month, what did you see when we're reviewing the numbers?
Yeah, so supply is still very low and demand is still very high. We are at decade records for both of those. So for pending, we're up 17.19% year over year. So pending would be the number of homes that went under contract in the month of July, that are under contract currently. So 7,286 under contract. And there's only 5,200 active listings in all of the Denver metro areas. And that is down 36% year over year. So that number, one being way high and the other being way low, really makes you feel that supply and demand. And I know, Matt, you've been feeling that with your clients on both sides.
Yeah, it's interesting as we've seen 3 months here consecutively that the under contracts are north of 7,000 homes under contract, and we're seeing still inventory levels not climbing, which is really creating this kind of pressure in the market. So we're seeing it's definitely in certain price points homes that are really kind of flying off the market. Now, when I say that, we have to keep one thing at the heart of all this. Pricing is critical when you're going to sell a home, because even as hot as the market is, buyers are still sensitive to price. They're just all running after the same couple of homes, and the ones that are overpriced just continue to sit there on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have you put in the comments after we're done. We have this graph that shows the 10-year trend. And it's a lot of numbers. Obviously, usually we don't put that much data, but you can see this year is like way up and then way down. So you'll kind of see what most of us are feeling with that demand being so high and the supply being so low. So we'll put that in the comments afterwards so you can just kind of take a look at what it's looked like over the past decade and kind of where we're at right now with it.
Yeah, and that's in an email that you've sent over to me earlier.
Yep, and I can send it to you again for sure.
Yeah, no, I've got it. I'll get that posted in the comments. Thankfully, Ashley's going to be back from maternity leave, and she'll be able to do these things live as we're going. She's supposed to be back next week, so super excited to have her back.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're moving on, the month supply of inventory is seasonally low, which is at 1.2 months. But it's a little bit deceiving because we are in a little what we're calling the delayed spring selling season. So because of COVID, basically spring is typically the hottest months, but we were shut down for that time. So it's kind of just bumped back a little bit. So 1.2 months inventory is low for this time of year, but it does feel in line with everything else that's happening. It's just, like I said, kind of shifted back. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of the year plays out, if we kind of catch up to what we're used to, or if this year is just an anomaly, as it's been so far. And then the other really interesting thing for detached single family homes, we are up 9.5% year over year. So we are right up close to that $600,000 average price point. So the exact number there would be 590,241. So Matt, I know you want to talk a little bit about that, because for buyers entering the market, that can be kind of a scary statistic.
Well, yeah, absolutely. When we hear that the average price now keep in mind this is detached, so this is not
Detached.
all homes, right? These are just the detached single family homes, getting close to 600. Gosh, when I got into the real estate industry, we thought we were doing pretty good in the mid 300s for the detached homes, and felt that there was a barrier once we got to that 400. Inventory levels being what they are still drives it up. Um, the reality of it is there's always a path to home ownership. No matter what the average price is going to be, there's always a path. Now, that path may look a little different. The thing that's really driving a lot of buyers right now being able to get into homes is the fact that we have historically low interest rates. In fact, I've seen and I've heard from some of my lender partners under 3% for 30 years. Now that's just astronomical. And in fact, on a personal note, Brenna, you've been shopping for a car.
Yeah.
And we're not seeing car rates under 3% for what the lending is happening there. But we have under 3% for 30-year mortgages.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of on that point with, it's, yes, we're approaching that 600 number, but there are other places to buy. If we look at this last bullet point here, the active listing breakdown month over month. So how many homes came on the market from June to July, and what that difference is. So Adams County, interestingly enough, is actually up a little bit in active inventory, 1.1%. So again, not very much, but still up compared to Broomfield, which is down 11.6% in 1 month. So that tells me that Broomfield right now is quite a bit more competitive than Adams. So that would be an opportunity area as far as where you're looking for. Now, sometimes obviously you don't have that flexibility, but sometimes you do, and your money will go further, or at least you'll have more than 1 or 2 homes to look at. So obviously Douglas County is in that same boat, down 19%. Jefferson, 4.6. So everything but Adams is down at least a little bit. Denver's basically flat as far as active inventory goes. So maybe you should go to Adams County if you're looking for a house, right?
Well, and that's the other piece. If we can't find what it is that you're looking for specifically in that area, well, we might be able to find it if we just look in a slightly different area. Now, I'm a Colorado native, and there's certain parts of the Denver metro area that growing up, we just had a perception that those were not awesome places to be. And what's happened here is more and more money's coming into the state, and the population's growing, is that some of those areas we had a preconceived notion that, weren't super awesome. And they're fantastic places to grow up, to raise a family, to live, to work, to play, whatever that looks like, for an individual. So for those that don't have to be tied to a specific geographic location, we might be able to find what you're looking for if we just think outside the box a little bit when it comes to the home buying process. And know that just because we're buying a home this year, that doesn't mean it has to be your forever home. It absolutely can be. It could absolutely be a stepping stone into what might be the forever home or that next home. Because as the market's appreciated, we're seeing a lot of folks get into a bigger home in a better area, with the interest rates being what they are, even keeping around the same payment. So it's a lot of things can be happening if we're okay with thinking outside the box, even if it's just temporary.
Yeah, and it's not saying move from Arvada to the Springs or Arvada to Fort Collins. It doesn't have to be that extreme. Even just within that metro counties,
Yeah.
there's some pretty big pockets for opportunity. But moving right along, this is our showing time data that we have looked at. And as I coined last time, the COVID crater here. And unfortunately, this little box is in the way, but what I thought was really interesting is over this July 4th weekend, it's virtually the exact same dip. So every year around 4th of July, people get out of town, they're not looking at homes. And that happened this year. It might have looked a little bit different, less barbecues, more camping, or even just, staycations, but that dip is virtually identical. So I think what holds true is on some of those Memorial Day, July 4th, those big weekends, we do see a big dip in showing traffic. So if you are a buyer, that's a great time to go out because you have less competition.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's conversations we have with our buyers during those times is 3-day weekends in Colorado. We like to get out and do things. We typically are not home shopping. So for those that are home shopping, you can get into an opportunity with a little less competition. Now, for my sellers, we usually talk about let's wait for the next weekend because the buyers will be back in so that we can drive that again. But again, the folks that are looking are definitely going to be serious.
Funny enough, Matt and I actually listed our house Easter weekend. We didn't take our own advice and didn't know it until we were already committed, and we ended up doing just fine. But it is definitely something to consider. And if we were going to do it again, I definitely would have waited until that next weekend because really we didn't have any showings until Monday. I was pregnant and emotional anyway, so it was a little bit scary for me. And then all of a sudden, Monday, people were like, okay, we can start looking at homes again. So definitely something to consider on both sides of that coin.
Yeah, I forgot it was Easter weekend when that went active.
Yep. Yeah. And then, so if we look here, August 6th was the day that we pulled this data. We're really close as far as showing goes. So, we've talked about this before, but there's a lot more serious buyers right now because people are less inclined to just go looky-loo because you have to set up a showing. There's no overlapping showings. There's all these different standards to keep people safe. So it takes a lot more work and effort to go do a showing. So the fact that we are right there, even a little bit higher than last year, to me says that there's more buyers in the market that are really ready and not just walking down the neighborhood. Oh, I want to see what my neighbor's house looks like.
Yeah. Well, and it's a good indication. And I think as we talked about last time, one of the early indicators of a shifting market is the buyer traffic starts to drop off. And we're just not really seeing that. Now, we'll watch to see what unemployment impacts have as we move forward into the next 12 months. The folks that are doing well right now still have the ability to buy homes. We'll see what kind of impact that has long term. Hopefully, folks are starting to get back to work and things are starting to move back in a healthy economic direction.
Yeah, I don't have the number on it, but I did see that we in Colorado are doing better than the nation on the whole, and we're down about 1% or so from the last month. So moving in the right direction as far as unemployment rates. So that's good. And then this is the market snapshot that we always look at. This is detached and attached. So green is active, blue is pending or those under contracts, and then red is sold. So like we mentioned before, green active, we're down 36.5%. Pendings, we are up 17.1, but we are down a little bit from June. So we're coming back from that total spike of a little bit of pent up maybe from people not being able to put homes under contract as much with the different regulations for COVID. And then our solds are ticking up, which follows. Solds would be a lagging indicator. So it kind of follows what pending does about a month in arrears. So I wouldn't be shocked at all if next month we start to see that sold line come down a little bit. But if we look year over year, we're still a lot higher. Now active, we're still lower as far as the waves go, but pending blue, we're still a lot higher than we have been, and solds pretty close, but still up year over year. As far as kind of that cyclical motion. So we are all really interested to see what the second half of the year looks like if our graph kind of evens out, because we had those big peaks, the V. But it's nice to see that at least in the real estate market, we had pretty much a V-shaped recovery, which is pretty darn close to the best we could hope for.
Yeah, almost like we dropped a bouncy ball and it recovered really quickly.
Yeah.
Anytime we see that active inventory or that green line dips below the red line, the solds, that's where we start to feel a lot of this compression, this tension in the market that is indicating that prices are really on the rise. And in fact, we're still seeing that. Home we put active here just this last weekend, we had over 30 showings just over the 2-day weekend. Very, very busy, really just stuff kind of stacked back to back. So I think we're going to continue to see that here for a little bit until we see some easing with more inventory.
Yep. All right, let's keep going here. This is just detached and attached if you're interested in that. This is active at listings again. If you can see year over year going back to 2016, it's low and dropping. So all of you sellers that have all that equity in your home, you can get it on the market and get a great return on your investment.
Well, a lot of those conversations that we're having is folks feel like, hey, I've got a lot of equity in my home, and that's great. I would sell it, would love to pocket that money, but where would I go? And as we answer that question, I think one of the most impactful things that can be done is leveraging that equity. If we go back to the live video interview that I did with my friend Matt Collette and how he leveraged his personal residence and the equity there to essentially equate to what is today several $1 million worth of real estate. Obviously, that was stair-stepping and took advantage of that appreciation. Now, you don't have to get into real estate investing. There's a lot of different things that can be done with those funds. Maybe it's taking some equity out, putting it into some place that you're getting a better return. If your interest rate's 3 or 4% and you could get an 8% return, maybe it makes sense to leverage that income. Again, I'm not a financial advisor, but there's a lot of things you can do with the equity if you don't want to move.
To buy a car. Right?
I think even the financial advisor would say, don't leverage your equity to go buy a car.
Right. Totally. Absolutely. So this is our days in MLS, or days on market. So this really shows us the speed of the market. And if we take a look here, we're down month over month, just a touch, to 24.5 days. So if we look last year, we're really close to that May number. So when we talk about that spring selling season, we really are close to that in just a few months shy, because typically in July, you can see we start to tick up typically, and that's not what's happening this year. So if we were to follow the trend next month, as far as how many months and how long it goes, we might see one more month of downward movement and then it go back up. But again, this year is just, no one has that crystal ball. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Yeah, it's always interesting to watch, and I love the fact that Land Title has the pieces in place to just gather this data, so that one, I don't have to go look for the data; it's all in one place, and I can go find the answers. The other cool part is with the systems that y'all have in place. Every once in a while, I get a question from a client that won't be specifically addressed in these graphs that you have, and it's been amazing how quickly the information turns around. Because as I shared with all my clients, I am kind of a numbers geek. The numbers are going to tell me the information that I want to know, because they're not emotional. I may feel emotional about what time of year is the best to sell, or gosh, it feels like I'm running ragged and everybody's paying 10% over list price. Yeah, when we go to the numbers, is that real, right? And the numbers tell me a different story.
Well, and we've talked about this before as well, but these numbers just help you prepare for what you're stepping into, because most buyers and sellers don't do this every day, every week, or every year. So if you can look at some of this data, it helps you understand, okay, I'm a buyer in this market and days on market is lower than it was last month, then we have to be ready to run potentially. So that means we need our, all of our lending in place, pre-approval, pre-qualified, everything really ready to go. And you have to kind of decide if you're in that spot where, okay, I'm not just going to test the waters and put in a really low offer or just kind of look and wait on it, because you might miss out on something. And unfortunately, sometimes people have to miss out on something before, when they start buying, before they really understand. And sometimes looking at these numbers and having those conversations gets you more prepared, so you don't have to miss out on something. You can be ready to say, okay, this is what we're in for, and this is what we need to be ready for.
Well, and I think I love that point. Absolutely, Brenna. And I appreciate you sharing that, because the thought that comes to mind as you share that is this sets us up to win the game.
Yeah.
As we take a look at what's going on, the current environment that we are in, what's the landscape that allows us to put ourselves in the best position? And I think of this as a sports analogy. And love them, hate them, the New England Patriots have won a lot of games recently. Now, as a Bills fan, they're both in the AFC East. I've really detested the Patriots for a very long time, and I know they're really hated here in Denver too. So, but you have to give it to Bill Belichick, because he sets his team up, because he prepares so well to win the game. And they talk about and they prepare different scenarios, and they know kind of the ins and outs, so that they play the strategy game versus just the X's and O's game. Now it's strategy with clock, et cetera. Tangent aside, let me bring that back to the point. As we review all of this information, again, this is our game film review. This is what we're looking at to say, okay, what is the best strategy if I'm buying a home? What is the best strategy if I'm selling a home? What if I'm buying in this price point, but I'm selling in another price point? What if I have to sell to buy? Can I buy without selling? What does this all look like? And I think the data is going to give us that information, so that we play the best game, given the best strategy, to ultimately have a successful outcome.
Absolutely. I know this weekend you were looking at some showing data to help you decide on pricing a listing, because it can be a matter of $5,000 one way or the other. And that can significantly increase or decrease your showing capacity. Same thing if you're looking at how many homes you're competing with, month supply and inventory, which is this that we're looking at here. If you're right on the cusp of something and you have a ton of competition in one, but if you go up or down one way and you don't, that might be a conversation to have as a seller, or even as a buyer. Say, hey, I'm going to have way more to look at here. I'm going to have way more competition. It's just, there's so many ways to look at it and use it. And a lot of this may be overwhelming until you actually need to use it. But hopefully you just get a little bit to know that it's here. And then, you can talk to Matt as you are ready to, take those steps and just dive into what makes sense for your specific situation.
Yeah, and to that point around the showing information, it was amazing. There were about 1,100 more showings during the same time period, just over a $5,000 gap in the pricing. Made a huge difference around around pricing that listing.
Yep. And you might have to, it might look like you're listing it for less, but you'll end up getting more because you have more demand. So, there's a lot more factors than just what your end game is. It's kind of that game plan that Matt's talking about.
Yeah. Be strategic. So what are we looking at here with this graph?
So this is month supply of inventory and average days in the MLS, broken down by price point. So again, month supply of inventory would be if we didn't put any homes on the market, how many months it would take us to run out. So if you look at this 200 to 500, it's under a month, so a couple weeks. So if you're in that price point, that's probably what you're feeling. But if you go up a little bit, there is more inventory, which typically equates to more days on the market because it's not quite as cutthroat. So if you're looking here, in our $1 million market and above, we're actually at that balanced market. So those are moving at a more cruising pace instead of light speed. But basically here, even up to 800,000, we're less than 2 months supply of inventory, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, not a lot of inventory. Again, I think it's the same story that we've had. There's not a lot of inventory, which can be a challenge on one side, can be a different challenge on the other side.
Yep. That's pretty much, this is just the sold analysis, but we've kind of talked about that before as well. But that was kind of what we wanted to cover today, and really just talk about, you know, even though supply is really low and demand is really high, there's a good story regardless of if you're a list selling your home or buying. And it's not just a sales pitch, it's really true, especially with those interest rates being so low and your money going further. And we're still seeing that appreciation. So people that are concerned what's going on, is real estate still a good investment? Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I think that if we look back at any piece of property 30 years ago, I can't think of a single one that I wouldn't have loved to have owned 30 years ago. Now, a 5-year-old owning real estate's a different conversation. As we flash forward another 30 years, what might those prices be 30 years from now if things continue to go the way that they're going? We're going to have more population, I'm sure. We're going to have more homes being built, but are we going to be able to keep up? I'm going to say over 30 years, there's not a piece of property I wouldn't love to own today at today's prices when I look from the lens of 30 years from now.
Yeah.
Right? So, well, fantastic. Well, Brenna, as always, I so appreciate you taking time out of your day to share this stuff with us as we talk through and analyze and interpret the data, interpret the numbers. So any final parting words that you have for everybody that's tuning in with us?
I don't think so. If you have questions, if you have specific things that you're curious about, just let us know. We're happy to look into it. I had a guy ask the other day, where are people coming from? And we don't have that data, but I was able to find it other places and get that for him. So if you're a numbers guy or girl, or if you're just interested or curious about something, just let us know. We're happy to help however we can.
Yeah, actually, I have a great program access to kind of that information as to where folks are migrating from. So one last kind of shameless plug, if those watching are in the middle of refinancing, your lender may not talk to you about you can choose the title company that you close with. I'm going to highly recommend Land Title. They were our favorite company before Brenna started working there. But you can absolutely recommend Land Title. It's a very strong, solid company that's going to be around. And your title policy is not something most people think about. It's an important thing.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, again, appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be back next month with that data. Stay tuned for the next upcoming video, which is with our own personal Joanna Gaines. It's our staging resource, Noreen. As anytime we've sold our personal homes, she's come through. She does all of our consultations. She's got some great bits of information to share around what that looks like. So anyway, again, Thanks everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you.
Have a good day.